Good afternoon, everyone. I'm champing at the bit to get up here and speak to you all, so it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much for coming, and it's great to see so many of you here today in Epsom. So I'm Jonathan Sharrock, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the year that we've had in Coast to Capital since we met 12 months ago in Brighton and we launched our strategy, Gatwick 360. So 12 months ago we launched our strategy, Gatwick 360, and obviously all of you in your businesses and your daily lives will have seen how much change is going on around us in politics, in the economy, in all sorts of aspects of how the UK works at the moment. The key thing when I look at the year of change that Coast to Capital has gone through is I feel that we have been very much in control of the change that we've been able to bring about in our work. I feel that insofar as you can be in control in this very complex environment, the LEP's done an excellent job at trying to get our message across and bring the opinions of people with us. Gatwick 360 has been a hugely important asset there because it's been allowed us to explain to people from outside the region what this region can offer to the UK economy, how significant our contribution can be, and really what we can bring to the country as it goes forward. Having that confidence that we know what we're talking about has really changed our posture with government. We've been able to talk to most government departments, all of our local MPs and many other important stakeholders around government so that we can explain what we can bring to the UK as it develops. And we've been able also on the back of Gatwick 360 to make some other changes. So we've changed our brand that you'll see in all of the material around us today, which again helps communicate the professionalism that we have as an organisation. We've moved offices, and if you work closely with us you'll have seen that we've moved from our slightly careworn offices in Horsham, which we'd outgrown, to a modest but much more professional set of premises in Crawley, which we're very pleased with and gives us a lot more scope for working with all our partners. We've also been able to ride some changes to the organisation very well. So the first change that's happened to us is our boundaries have changed. The government was very keen that LEPs shouldn't have overlaps between one another, and that's required us to change our boundaries with some parts of the region being confirmed in our neighbouring LEPs. But we've really taken that as a huge opportunity, and both Tim Waits and I have been able to start to bring together and lead a wider grouping of southern LEPs, which we're very pleased is now starting to have an impact with ministers and starting to be understood as a counterpoint to the North and the Midlands and the Oxford to Cambridge arc. So the southern LEPs, which you'll be hearing a lot more of over the next 12 months, goes from the Solent all the way through the southern counties of England over to Essex and Hertfordshire. And it's that group of places, that group of LEPs, that can then form a really strong partnership with London and demonstrate how our part of the UK can make a difference. And of course, Coast to Capital's got very significant historic links with London, given our relationship with Croydon over the years. And I believe we're very well placed to do that as we go forward. So the change for us has been significant, but it's been something that we've been very well placed to ride. And all of this is about maximising our influence as we go through the next 12 months. Now, in my career, I've been very clear that you have to make your own luck in terms of environments as they change and the operating environment as it changes. And there's a slide that'll come up in a second that will just show you the different steps we're taking to do that. So the very first step, of course, is the publication of Gatwick 360, which demonstrates what we want to achieve as a region. The second step shows the significant amount of work we've had to do to build government and Parliament's confidence in us as a delivery partner. Now, all of you in public sector organisations know that you kind of live or die reputationally by the assessment that you have from government about how well you're doing. And the good news is that we, as an organisation, are rated as good in all of our areas of activity. So good on our governance, good on our projects, good on our strategy. Puts us in the top 10 of LEPs and starting to become one of those places that government can naturally turn to as a good partner. The board has asked me to increase that assessment so we get at least one excellent in the year ahead, which we're well on track for doing, with an ambition of being one of the very best LEPs nationally. Building on that, we've started to really deepen our partnership, working with lots of people in the room and the different sectors that we work with. So with our public sector partners, we've been able to put a significant amount of effort into the new transport body for the South East, TFSE, which will be the new local government-led vehicle for bringing control of transport infrastructure back to elected politicians in our region. Very supportive of that, and delighted that one of our business board members is on the board of TFSE, as well as many of our politicians. We've been able to contribute massively to Greater Brighton and also to the work being done at county level to get a different strategic approach in the counties. So very much an excellent partner to local government, and in line with that, an excellent partner to our businesses as well. And there have been a number of events over the year that have really begun to cement our relationships with businesses. So work that we've been doing with the cultural sector to start to understand opportunities in the region for the cultural economy that the government's very keen on. Work with the railway sector about how we're going to get our railways improved. And then thematic work across the region on issues like skills, the future of our rural economy, and other really significant issues where we have so much business-led expertise in the region, and we as a region really need to harness it. So as we move up these pie charts, I believe that these bar charts, I believe that we're building the conditions for our future success. On the back of that, we can be able to be seen as a really strong vehicle for growth and go into our local industrial strategy with real confidence. Now, the local industrial strategy is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, but just a few words quickly on how we're doing on delivering the existing programme of work. Now, the government has given all LEPs capital money to deliver. We have had more than £300 million of funds and £275 million of grant funding. And we've got a very significant portfolio of projects, 85 projects, with more to come, as Julie said, in the next couple of weeks. Our goal, basically, is to fully deliver all of the outputs that we have promised to deliver to government. That's a 100% success rate on all of the outputs that we've promised. Now, that's not easy, because 85 projects requires 85 different partnerships with all of our different delivery bodies. But we believe that as the LEP, we have to be really clear about the importance of delivery so that the region is seen as a great place to spend money. Of course, above all, we've got to show that the outputs we deliver are nationally relevant. There would be no point spending the money on local projects that had a marginal local benefit. We need to be focusing on the projects that are going to transform the reputation of this region. And I just want to talk you through three of the best projects that do that, where there has been or will very shortly be very significant progress. The first of these, opening next week, the Fairfield Halls in Croydon, will be opened by Dame Judy Dench. It's going to be a hugely significant cultural asset for the whole region. The scale of the Fairfield Halls makes it significantly bigger than any of the local theatres or local entertainment places that you might be familiar with, which of course have a very important purpose. But we see Fairfield Halls as a way of really confirming our region as a magnet for the cultural economy more widely. So there'll be 1,300 jobs generated around the Fairfield Halls, jobs in the cultural sectors. It'll have its own orchestra, its own theatre, its own dance company, a large number of jobs rooted in Croydon, and with a catchment area that goes all the way down the M23 corridor, will be a very significant asset for our region. If you need a benchmark for the Fairfield Halls nationally, it's not quite at the level of the Royal Albert Hall or the Barbican as a real national asset, but it is equivalent to the Sage in Gateshead or some of these other big anchor institutions that you see in other parts of the UK. So a real chance to put the spotlight on our region. And many of you will know that it's reputed to have the best acoustics in the UK in its main concert hall, as a perfectly designed building in the 1960s. Another really, really important investment, Gatwick Railway Station. Now, we've talked a lot about the importance of Gatwick to our economy in this place, but just in the last few months, the government's announced a £150 million upgrade to Gatwick Airport. Gatwick Airport is the 8th busiest railway station outside of London, so it's significantly busier than most of the city railway stations that you find in other parts of the UK. And of course, what makes it most significant is it's the station where you have by far and away the most people who've got mobility needs. It doesn't just mean that it's people with disability, it means most of the passengers at the railway station have got huge suitcases with them, and you can see whenever you travel there. So the design we're going to have at this station is going to make Gatwick stand out nationally as a place with excellent wayfinding, excellent public access, excellent access to trains, so that frankly people arriving into the UK get a really good perception not just of the country but of our region, and it will be an extremely impressive piece of civil engineering to deliver that, reflecting the extremely impressive railway service that the airport offers. And thirdly, to come back to the Brighton 5G testbed. I talked about this when we were in Brighton, at which point it had just been launched, but it's worth coming back to it again. What we can all see is that 5G is becoming a thing in the public media. In the discussion about mobile services and mobile networks, 5G is starting to come through as a consumer offering. Our area is far ahead of the game. We've had now for nearly 18 months a 5G testbed down in New England House. 100 business opportunities have been developed over that time, which means 100 sort of credible, innovative projects, mostly by SMEs, starting to look at how different aspects of the economy can adapt to 5G. 5G is the Internet of Things, effectively. It's automation at a large scale. It's a huge opportunity for us to adopt a new technology and be leaders. So we're really excited to see innovation coming through in the cultural sector, in all sorts of different applications, which we believe will start to make Brighton and the digital coast all the way along to Bognor Regis the place where digital industries are going to want to go, with huge investment in the fibre infrastructure to support that. So across the portfolio, you can see these numbers. Now, the numbers don't mean very much in isolation, apart from to show you that they are very significant challenges. You know, the number of houses, the amount of business space, the amount of roads that we're committed to delivering in the next 18 months. But the numbers are potential game changers. I mean, just to pull out the 731,000 square metres of business space, that alone constitutes about a third of total annual demand for business space in the region, and we'll come on to talk about the huge demand for business space that our region has. So the coastal capital projects will start to make a difference and will start to be seen, allow us to start to be seen as an area that's making a difference. I just want to talk through a couple of other areas of enormous achievement over the last year. And many of you will be familiar with our growth hub that we have run for 3 years. We brought it back in-house from a failed external contract, and it really has gone from strength to strength. Over the last year, we've supported about 800 businesses, small and medium-sized companies who come to us for help on how are they going to grow and how can they expand their business. What we've been able to do is 3 things. We've been able to amplify the support we give them by engaging the help of 30 specialist growth champions, so people from particular economic sectors who can be very expert at giving tailored advice where it's needed. The second thing we've been able to do is really validate the success of our work. So we are absolutely delighted that we're the only LEP selected by Royal Bank of Scotland to have a banker in residence. As far as we know at the moment, the only one that's working. There were 2 chosen and we've hit the ground running. So, you know, with Vicky, we have a banker in residence who's able to bring financial support into that, which represents a huge vote of confidence in us from NatWest. And thirdly, and secondly, also recognition by HMRC of the importance of what we do. So we've also been selected by HMRC as a benchmark study so they can start to gauge what the impact of our growth hub work has been. We're also able to provide grant funding for businesses, and last year £800,000 of capital grants to 15 businesses to help them invest in their capital. We've another 35 businesses in the pipeline, all seen by the Growth Hub, all understood, all validated as excellent growing companies with huge potential, and we're really excited at the opportunity to consider them for capital grants to help them take the next step in their business growth. So a really successful product there. Another enormously exciting and very successful product from Coastal Capital has been our Escalator Programme. What we've done here since January is create a peer-to-peer learning network to find some of the most capable and ambitious business owners in the region, from the scale-up businesses, you know, the ones that have the most potential to become large businesses of the future. And those scale-up businesses are working with us, with MD Hub, our partners, to get proper peer-to-peer learning so that they can learn from each other what are the steps they need to take to grow their businesses. As to our knowledge, this is the only such programme in the country, and something of increasing interest to the government, so something we're really proud of and will be aiming to roll out across the whole region over the next period. Before I move on to the local industrial strategy, I ought to just say something about the economic context, and I won't be giving you the answers to anything, I'm afraid. It's obviously a very challenging time, a potentially confusing time in terms of the direction that the country is going to take in relation to Brexit, with more detail to come over the next few weeks and months. But we do know two things which I should tell you about the position that the government's taking and the role that it's asking Coastal Capital to play. So the first is that they have made available, the ministers have made available a fund of £10 million to any business representative organisation to help provide more resources to advise small businesses on the impact of Brexit. This is primarily targeted at our colleagues in the chambers, in the FSB, in specialist trade associations who'll be bidding for it. And our role is to support them, help increase the impact of their bids and make sure that as much money as possible comes into our region, which we're working hard on doing with many of you in the audience. The second thing is just in the last week, ministers have confirmed the role that they'd like LEPs to play in helping businesses prepare for and adapt to the changes that leaving the EU will bring. So we will be working with our colleagues across the Southern LEP network that I described before in a larger group of LEPs, really focusing on getting as much information that we can out of the local economy so that we can give a really clear message to ministers on the impact that Brexit preparation and then Brexit is having on you. There'll be a lot more detail to come on this in the next few days and weeks, but there will be a very concerted attempt to hear your stories and play those stories back to ministers. The second thing we'll be doing is we'll be acting as a channel so that the government's information can come clearly into the region, using our Growth Hub, using our platforms that exist already, and hosting ministers and government officials when they come out to the region and give formal events and presentations on what they think it will mean. So we do have dates and we do have venues that we're starting to discuss with the different government departments on when we bring them to Gatwick, when we bring them to Brighton, when we bring them to Surrey, and we're talking about 4 or 5 quite significant events to provide a platform for businesses to engage. So watch this space, more to come, but an important role for us, which we're very keen to do, and a promise that we will work with all of you as that journey goes on to support you as much as we can. One of our roles, of course, is to feed your views back. So phone's out. Let's hope it works this time. Just a quick snapshot from you. What do you think about Brexit for your organisation? Don't think about it too much. Do you think it'll be positive or negative, or you don't know? That would be really helpful. Okay. So that's a picture with most people expressing a view, believing it will be negative, but a significant number of people not sure what it means. And I think that really articulates the challenge we face. We need to work much more closely together and with ministers to explain and understand what the impact of these changes will mean and make sure that we can respond as best as we can to those. I'm going to move on now, in the last couple of minutes from me, just to talk about the local industrial strategy. And then I'll hand over to some colleagues to go into a bit more detail for you. So the key thing to say, of course, is at a time of uncertainty, we as an organisation are very much focused on the next phase of investment in our region. And whatever happens, whether that's in Brexit, in a general election or any other scenario, that our region is getting as much investment as it deserves and helping to tackle the challenges that we know exist in the local economy. And of course, it's imperative that we do that because all across the country, our colleagues, whether that's in the northern cities, in the towns of the Midlands or the coastal towns or the big metropolis of London, are doing exactly the same. And whoever is in government, we will be in competition with them to get as much money as we can for the region. So we're very strongly advised by the civil servants that the best way to do that is to prepare properly for an industrial strategy, a local industrial strategy, because any decisions that are taken on future funding will be evidence-based. And at the moment, the government doesn't have a clear view of what the economic performance is of all of the regions of England. So that's our challenge. And the work that we're going to do over the next 6 months, which I'll come on to explain to you, is about developing a local industrial strategy. 7 local industrial strategies have already been published, and you may wish to peruse them at your leisure. For my money, the best ones are from Oxfordshire and the west of England, which is Bristol and Bath. There are others, but I think these are the most compelling and they're the most relevant to us as well. And what these regions do is bring out much more clearly than I previously understood what their potential is as a region. And in that you can see the ingredients of a successful local industrial strategy for coastal capital. You know, not making any assumptions about what we might be entitled to, not making any assumptions about ministers viewing us favourably or unfavourably, but being absolutely cold-eyed about the detail of how our economy is working, what are the challenges we face and what are the opportunities we face, and above all, demonstrating why this area is the best area of the country for particular types of business to grow and expand. And I think what we can see across all of the local industrial strategies is a real focus, a real interest from government on what are the conditions like for private enterprise in your area, what are the sectors that have taken root already, and what do you need in place to attract the next generation of successful businesses. And that's because the global economy will change significantly over the century and particularly over the next 5 to 10 years. So that's the target. Work is very well underway, and we will be talking to you about that in more detail in the next presentation. So I thought I'd just boil down our plan into 3 easy sections for you. The first thing is we have developed a comprehensive evidence base, which our colleague Chris Paddock from Hatch Regeneris will talk you through in the next presentation. We will be consulting on that evidence base next week. That will be a 6-week consultation process and a chance for all of you to tell us what you think about the evidence base and above all to share with us evidence that you might have which is missing. So we already have a good evidence base in Gatwick 360. We think we're taking it to the next level and probably beyond when the work our consultants have done to us, but you know, it's not perfect and we need your help to fill in any gaps that you see. So that's the first phase. Once that consultation is finished, at the end of the year, in November and December, we will be working very hard on how we turn all that evidence into a compelling narrative for the region. And Claire Mason, one of our board members, will be talking you through how we develop that compelling narrative. You know, the absolute importance of being eye-catching, professional, engaging in describing our region with no assumptions about what we're entitled to, but every attempt to play a competitive game really, really well. And Claire will talk us through that. The board will then take a decision on the approach we're taking to the local industrial strategy in early January at their meeting. And then we will begin a negotiation with government, which I expect will be in the first few months of next year. And the key word there is negotiation. We cannot decide what's in our local industrial strategy. We'll have to persuade ministers and, above all, Treasury civil servants of the best way of seeing our region. And they, in turn, will have expectations of us and challenges that they'll put to us. So that's the frame we're in. And above all, imperative that we work with everybody in doing that. And as well as the board, we have a joint committee meeting of all of our political leaders to do that. And we will have a number of further stakeholder engagements with all of you, with local authority stakeholders, education sector and businesses to do this. But the next phase is to explain our research, which I'll hand over to Chris to do. I would just say in finishing that it's an absolute privilege and a pleasure on a personal basis to lead this organisation and do this work. It really is an incredibly exciting journey that we're on as a region, and one that I very much enjoy working with. I'm very grateful to all of you for the support and above all the challenge that you give us. You know, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well, and often many of you are good at challenging us and, you know, encouraging us to look at things that we haven't previously thought of. I do believe that is the way that we'll come up with a good local industrial strategy. It's not because we know everything, it's because the LEP is the tribune and the vehicle for really raising issues, which may sometimes be uncomfortable, but raising issues and inviting you to engage on them. And in the 3 years I've done this job, I've always been very grateful for the engagement and support you've all given. Long may it continue.